Hello. I really don't like the idea of debating religion, and here's why. If you've in any way been affected by the ideas of the past couple of centuries, then you probably agree that an individual person is entitled to their own personal beliefs, be they political, philosophical, or religious. Now, accepting that religion is a personal thing, which I will get into later on, but just for starters, accepting that religion is a personal thing, then to, in any discussion, suggest that someone, as far as their religion is concerned, is wrong would be for at least one person, probably both people. If there's a debate, there have to be two people. But for at least one person to tell another that they are in no way entitled to their individual beliefs, which is just ridiculous. In order to have a proper discussion about religion, you would have to have at least two people who do not entirely agree, but who agree to disagree, and who overall respect one another's religious beliefs and show enough of an interest in one another's beliefs in order to have a strong desire to learn from the other person and have a greater understanding both of themselves and of other people. So as you can imagine, such a conversation would be incredibly boring. So, now, let's continue on along the road for a while. Religion. What is religion? I'm not going to try to explain it entirely, but religion has many aspects. It has the... That's a very nice intrusion on my video. I'm wondering if you can hear that. In any case, now, a lot of people would argue, well, at least some people, would argue that religion is superstition. I would have to say that this isn't entirely accurate, because religion does not quite attempt to explain the physical world anymore, so much as it exists, or rather runs concurrent to the physical world. Because when you look at it, on the surface, religions may seem to be a lot about mythology and about rituals, but first addressing the mythology. In the modern world, I wouldn't really say that intelligent people who are religious would necessarily take everything. I'm not saying they wouldn't take it seriously, but I sincerely doubt they would take it literally. I mean, think about it. Did Noah really build an ark? Did Utnapishtim really build an ark? Did Napoleon really build an ark? Well, the last one might be historically accurate, but the first two probably weren't. Again, there are things... This was, when you look at it, at the time of religion's development, creation, whatever. This probably was taken more seriously and more literally, but in the present day, you find that very often religious texts, religious stories, religious mythology is used as parable, allegory, metaphor, what have you, for greater religious moral concepts, spiritual concepts, and just ideas in general. So, as long as you accept these as what they are, being parable, metaphor, or allegory, in these cases, then there's really no harm done there, and there is really not the same literal interpretation that one would expect. Now, there are some people who do take a very literal interpretation. Some of us would call them fundamentalists, some of us would call them idiots. I'll get more into them later on, although I really don't want to. Now, let's keep going. There's also a lot of ritual, it would seem, in religion. There are a lot of religious practices that are very ritualistic that... Let's just look at some religious practices. There is, let's say, praying, fasting, meditating, religious ceremonies. In some religions, there's, like, let's say, communication with the dead, communication with spirits, demons. It's interesting that the whole demon thing, that actually carries... It seems to be like a very almost tribal, primitive religion type things. Primitive? Yeah, I guess primitive. But really it's interesting how a lot of these things carry over into religions like, let's say, Catholicism. Catholicism's very interesting. Anyway. Now, all of these things, what exactly is their purpose? Now, one may attempt to say that one does things such as this out of an interest in altering or changing the physical world. But really, it's almost the exact opposite. Anything that is done religiously is done for one's spiritual well-being, regardless of whether one truly believes, like literally believes, the things, the elements of their religion, the teachings of their religion, and also teachings. Religion, there are different kinds of teachings. The teachings of religion wouldn't so much be the historical teachings, so much as the moral teachings, the spiritual teachings, the conceptual, deeper, complicated teachings that are present in so many religions, and yeah, pretty much are present in so many religions. Anyway, I'm sorry, I know I keep diverging and stuff, but let's keep going. Regardless of whether people take this literally, you'll find that the effect in these situations is the same. People do these things not to cause a change in the physical world, like, let's say, magic, but rather they do so to evoke a spiritual change within themselves. Even if they do something such as praying, if you pray for something, again, that has more of a personal effect. More of a personal effect than a physical one. Even in the modern world, when people understand the lack of a magical effect there, people still participate in these things because people still understand the personal benefit that they receive from such things. Because there's a lot of talk about the soul in some religions, but that's really what religion is about. It's about the spirit. Regardless of how spiritual you are, it doesn't really matter. There is a spiritual aspect to the world that even if it's not very strong within some people, it is strong within others. And you can't deny that there is a spiritual or even psychological effect there that is really what religion is centered around. It may not seem so, but when you think about it, when you look at all of the ritual, the mythological aspects, and so forth, you find that the effect that they have, even if on the surface it operates under the guise of being affecting the physical, natural world in which we live, you'll find that the deeper effect is a personal one. Religion is, for the most part, a personal journey. Now, some would argue, I'm going to concede here, there are some who would argue that this is not the case, that their religion is real in the sense that they can physically alter the world. Also, during the Middle Ages, let's say, before science came along, this was the belief. The fact of the matter is that in the modern world, these fundamentalist-type people are, I would like to hope they're in the minority. Even if they're not really representative of the overall whole. Hang on, I'm gonna sneeze. They are not representative of the overall whole, and they are not representative of the depth of the religion. Just because they take their own religion at face value does not mean that that is all that exists. And also, even if you look throughout history, some of the most prolific and significant scientists and contributors to science have been religious themselves. Again, religion and science do not come in conflict with each other so much as they address different aspects of the world. Science addresses the rational, physical aspect of the world, whereas religion addresses the spiritual, psychological, personal aspect of the world. Excuse me. So, in general, whether you believe in, let's say, God, if you believe in a religion, then good for you. If you don't believe in a God or a religion, just as good for you. What you believe really doesn't matter. The only problem is when you take these beliefs and start to use them like as weapons or as subject matter to fight against one another on. Because really, when you think about it, anyone who takes up a strong position in this fight, it would be telling the other person that their metaphysical beliefs are false. Overall, I'm not saying you shouldn't discuss your religion. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about your religion. I, myself, probably have a lot that I could learn from you, and that everyone could learn from each other. But when it gets to be a debate, that's just silly. It's one thing to ask, does God exist? And so long as you're asking questions there's no real problem. But when you change it to God does exist, then that gets to be a very big complication. Or the converse, God doesn't exist. Either way, doesn't really work out. And that's about all. I'm going to try to edit this down as little as possible. Shouldn't leave that in, but I'm going to anyway. Good day.